Welcome, everybody, to Season 3 of Omnisend's Card Insiders podcast. I'm your host, Greg Zakwitz. This season is all about email marketing automation and providing you with the information you need to increase your sales, not your workload. Throughout the season, I'll be discussing these high revenue driving workflows with industry experts and companies who are executing them well. On today's episode, we're going to dive deep into List Growth and Welcome series with our special guest, Allison Caufield, Senior Marketing Manager at FiGPiN. So let's get this thing rolling by first welcoming back to the show e-commerce veteran Lucas Walker. Lucas, nice to speak again, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really enjoying doing these intros and digging in a little bit and really going over the great data that you have over on the resources section of omnisend.com if anyone wants to check out what we're talking about.
Absolutely. So thanks for doing the plug to the website and all that stuff for me. So today's episode, we're going to talk to a company called FiGPiN. Allison Caufield will be my next guest here, where she's going to break down the Welcome series, their strategy behind it, what they put in the messages, discounting strategies or not discounting strategies, and kind of walk you through that to help get you an idea about the success they're seeing with Welcome messages and how so. We look at our 2020 benchmark report, like you just mentioned, Lucas. In 2020, Welcome series to set the stage, open rate across the entire year of just under 31%, click-through rate 20.5%, and a conversion rate, which is absolutely ridiculous, for the entire year, 52%. I've honestly never seen anything like that. I don't know how it's possible, but this kind of shows you the impact of a Welcome message and Welcome series can have on conversions. So, Welcome emails is interesting because they've been around pretty much as long as email marketing. Like I started doing email marketing about 15 years ago, and we were sending welcome messages back then, right? So this is not a new thing. Lucas, why do you think these have so much staying power?
It's really that first interaction, and there's enough buying intent that if I go to a website, and especially a commerce website, and I put my email in, I know what I'm getting, why I'm doing this. I'm not doing it for entertainment purposes. I'm not doing it to look for funny forwards to send to my friends. I'm probably doing it because I'm at least a little bit interested in making that purchase. And so when I put my email in, it's almost like if you walk into a brick and mortar store and you open the door and you hear the little bell ring, the person behind the counter or one of the sales staff says, "Hey, welcome. Have you been here before? Well, let me tell you what we're all about, what makes us different." And that is really the power of that first welcome email. And that series lets you really define your narrative and even engage with your customers a little bit. And so just one story I wanted to share when I was running Treats Happen, one of our most powerful welcome emails was just asking to see a picture, was sharing a picture of our dogs and then just asking to see a picture of our customers' dogs. And inevitably, the people who responded to those emails always ended up becoming really high LTV customers. So I think that the Welcome series is just a great way to control the narrative of what people think of your brand and make sure that they do hear the right story and know a lot of the interesting things. I know this episode is with FiGPiN, and a great example of this could be showing that the merchandise is licensed and official, because that busts an objection, it adds credibility, and it just makes it a little bit more reassuring to the buyer that, hey, you know what, I am buying a quality product.
I love the example of what you guys did for your welcome message, right? You were trying to create a connection with your consumer based on this shared interest, right? And pets are one of those things that people are exclusively loyal about with good reason. We'll talk to Allison, and I'm going to ask her why and how they came up with the content for each of those messages. Why did you decide this? Why did you decide that? Incentives are one of these things that a lot of welcome messages you'll see is, right? It's that enticement to sign up for the email program, but they're not always necessary. It's one of these things that people have been conditioned to do. So I would always encourage brands to look at their own brand and figure out what works best for your audience, right? And you gave a perfect example of that. You looked at that and said, okay, do we need to just send the message, be like, hey, thanks for signing up, here's 10% off? Or can we create an engagement which would then bridge some sort of connection with you, which would then make you more loyal or have a better brand affinity there? So I love what you did there because it just points to that, you don't have to do that, right? You can think about your own brand and how that relates to a welcome message. So I love the example, Lucas.
Oh, thank you so much.
I asked about the staying power of a welcome message before, but one of the reasons I asked that was because traditional best practice for a welcome series has changed over the time, right? It used to be send this message here, tell them in the welcome message how often you're going to send messages, which I never advise to do anymore because are you going to stick with that come holiday season, right? When your peak season or extra sales or whatever, right? Those things change. It used to be tell them all about your brand, tell them how to whitelist you and like things like that have changed, right? I don't know anyone
Mhm.
who's ever whitelisted an email address from a brand before, but you also have
Yeah, I don't know anyone who's done that, and I know some pretty nerdy folks, including myself.
yeah, these best practices have changed, and this goes with like the traditional manage preference message, like the dedicated message, hey, manage your preferences. And I have a story about that if you want to hear it. Or these social
Yeah, I'd
media
love to.
invite messages. Yeah, I will get to it. Everyone knows how to find you on social. Now, I still see these messages, and sometimes if you use them the right way, they can be effective. But I think across the board, they've kind of jumped the shark to things like focusing on the brand, maybe your brand story a little bit, maybe top rated products, or it's more recognizing that when people are signing up, they're on your website for a reason. There is some sort of buyer intent, and how do we cater to that buyer intent while still reinforcing the brand? And I think that's the state with Welcome Series we're in now. So, real quick on that story that you mentioned, that I mentioned, that you said you
Yeah.
wouldn't hear. So I'm signed up for hundreds, I mean, probably 500 email programs, right? But there's one that I used to track based on a mutual competitive thing with clients I was working with. So about a year and a half ago, maybe everything's a year and a half ago for me now, but about a year and a half ago, they changed email providers because they sent an email and like, hey, we're going to have a new email address, right? So I kind of got clued into they were changing. So one of the first messages they sent with this new email provider was, hey, we have a new email program. Tell us about yourself. And it was it was pretty much a new welcome series, right? To everyone, manage your preferences. So I'm like, okay, so I jump in, I manage my preferences. To this day, I have not gotten any message that's not a batch and blast message, right? There's nothing customized to me. A couple weeks ago,
Hmm.
I got a message and it was they're obviously trying to collect managed preferences again, right? So I got this message, hey, manage your preferences, we want to know more about you. And I'm like, well, I've already done this and you haven't done anything for a year and a half, right? And this is the thing I used to run into when I was working with clients all the time was we would send the message out to brand new engaged subscribers. And then you say you got a 30% open rate on it. So you've got 30% of the people now potentially receiving it who have opened. And then the people that would actually click through to the preference form was maybe half of that. So now you're at like 15%. And then you got about 7% of the people or so on average that would actually complete the preferences. So if you think about this, you're dedicating this extremely, extremely impactful, targeted, timely message that 7% of people are actually interacting with. And then on the flip side, the companies are not using that in the short term, right? They're maybe aggregating it for later for more segmentation. They're missing this huge opportunity.
And a lot of that, you don't need to ask what the preference is. You can just see the behavior. If they haven't opened the last 12 emails, you don't need to ask what their preference is. It should be pretty obvious.
Especially for new subscribers. But like these are just things that have kind of jumped the shark that, if you look up these blog posts from 10 years ago, some of which I wrote will tell you to do these things, right? You'll miss on what's going on in today's world. It's like looking at your screen and being like, oh, you're missing the world around you. So I think it's one of these things where, we just need to kind of change with the times. But to your original point is, do something that's going to connect with your brand a little bit more. So when you are signing up for an email program, we obviously expect to receive welcome messages. With the series itself, what type of welcome series appeals to you the most, Lucas?
So I think that this is really, really important for e-commerce to know that your first email gets such good engagement. Don't waste that. That should be a hard sales email and show a give the discount if that's what your call to action is, but also just say, hey, here's what's new in our store, here's what's trending this week, and tie that into being relevant with what customers are doing. Because I might have signed up for the email, maybe I saw one product on Instagram or TikTok that I came from, but what else can you do? And so start creating that bundle, share some reviews, and make it really obvious that it's a safe purchase. Make someone who just gave you that email feel really comfortable in that first welcome message. And then step two, that's when to say, you know what, didn't buy right away. Let's educate a little bit more and proactively remove some of those objections, especially for a brand like FiGPiN that's going to be more likely to do a limited release or have a few different types of products. Say, hey, these are our latest pins, and show the products in different uses. Show maybe the pins on a denim jacket, on a backpack, etc. Just make it feel really comfortable that someone's going to see one of those emails and say, and it resonates and say, oh yeah, that's me. I put pins on my backpack, or my child does. I'm going to pick some up now.
Yeah, so I love what you said about making it a hard sales email, right? So you could still be friendly, you could still get your branding across while still making it a hard sales email. And I think we talk about shopper intent and things like this. I think we both mentioned so far in this conversation. Don't sleep on that opportunity, right? It's really there. When I mentioned social media invite messages before, what's interesting is, and this goes into the hard sell side, I wouldn't recommend sending a social media invite, but I'd recommend using user generated content in these welcome series messages to help drive sales. You think about reviews and testimonials, top rated products, customer favorites, right? These are all things that can entice a customer to click on certain things or move towards certain products and help make decisions when they may not know a lot about your brand, but they're definitely interested there. When you get welcome series messages, what type of cadence do you appeal to most when you get those?
I think it really, really does depend on the brand. I hate, like, Wayfair is the example that comes to mind of emailing just way, way too much. I think it does depend on the time of year as well. In around the holidays, around BFCM or like a Labor Day sale, I'm just going to be expecting more emails. But I think that it can be safer to have, let's say, 3 to 5 emails and stagger that over a period of time, because that also lets you send more campaigns as well as other flows. So the frequency might be daily by the time that everything gets stacked, but um I think that something that's just important to think is, once that customer's in your call it an ecosystem, what's that frequency of messaging across everything. I think that a welcome email is important to send sort of within an hour, maybe not right away while they're still on the website, but remind them and let them continue that browse experience in their inbox as an extension of your website. And then you can even use that to say, you know what, hopefully that they add to cart or they browse a product, and then maybe the next day they get that browse abandonment email that we talked about in another episode. And then if that one doesn't resonate, then they get the next piece of the welcome series. So I think it's just knowing how everything's going to play together in really a symphony of promotional email messages.
So it's interesting you say send the email maybe an hour later, right? Maybe not right when they're on their website. And I think that might depend on whether you're promising an incentive on there. But this is somewhat of a double-edged sword because I don't want to say this happens all the time, but at least a couple times a year to me, where say it's 10%. I know I'm going to make a purchase. I sign up for the email program because I got there. I'm looking for the 10%. The email comes an hour later, Lucas, right? And I'm like, I don't want to wait the hour to make the purchase. So I'm like, what is the 10% to me? And then I start rationalizing it, right? I'm like, I'll just pay the 10%. And I'll pay full price for it, knowing that if I probably wait an hour or two, I'll probably get the 10%, but I want it now, right? It's that impulse, it's that immediacy that I want. So the company saves on margins. The welcome email doesn't get the conversion, but it doesn't really matter at that point. The sign up tactic is the thing that really got the conversion from me. Now, that could be a double edged sword where you can get probably consumers calling customer support to say, hey, can I get credited 10%? I never do that. It's just extra effort for me. But that is a way where you could potentially save on the margins while still offering a discount for signing up for the email program. I just find it interesting because every time I think about it, I know what's happening, but I still do it. One that may be missed. Why is welcome to you so important?
I mean, it's just the stats of it works really well, and just no other email converts at that rate of having that 50% open rate on that first message. It's also the first impression that a customer has with your brand. So for those two reasons, it's so crucial to to be relevant and to be updated regularly and to just be really appropriate for what's going on. So if you set up your welcome series during BFCM and you're referencing the holidays, well, it's nice and warm and summery out now. People are going to be really turned off by that. So for just such an engaging customer touch point, it's just so critical to get right.
So before we transition over to my conversation with Allison at FiGPiN, talk about their welcome series, one last question for you here, Lucas. Welcome series pet peeve that companies do. Anything off the top of your head you can think of?
I think just not aligning with the website, where if the just not looking and feeling like the same brand, I think that's a big thing that just feels weird, as well as just trying to send too much in an email. You can't tell your brand story. You can't show products. You've got maybe 10 to 15 seconds of someone browsing and skimming their email. Don't try to send everything in that first message. Stagger it out so people have more time to get acquainted with you.
Love it. Lucas, thanks for your time. Enjoyed the conversation about Welcome Series. We'll see you on the next episode. For anyone that either wants more information on Lucas, his podcast, or to contact him, check out the show notes. We'll have it all listed down there for you.
I hope you enjoyed my intro with Greg. Now enjoy his conversation with Allison Caufield, Senior Marketing Manager over at FiGPiN.
I'd like to now welcome to the show Allison Caufield, Senior Marketing Manager at FiGPiN, the ultimate pin collectible company. So Allison is overseeing the digital transformation, helping to grow their email list and implement automated messages that now make up 24% of their email marketing revenue. And I want to dig into the list growth and welcome series strategy to help show others a way to use marketing automation to increase their own email marketing sales. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Allison. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's great to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. Allison, before we jump into this, let's just kind of do some very basic level setting for the audience so they kind of get a expectation and a perspective
Yeah.
about where you're coming from. Just very quick from the business standpoint, can you give a quick rundown about who FiGPiN is and as well as your typical customer?
Yeah, so FiGPiN is in the collectibles industry. So we have officially licensed collectibles from Star Wars, Marvel, a lot of anime. So our typical customer is a collector who someone is like a mega fan of one of these licenses, and they collect different merchandise associated with that license or character. So we have a lot of Star Wars is our biggest one probably, but a lot of anime and a lot of Marvel as well.
Is there a typical price point that you could use to just kind of level set? So are we talking about like $1,000 pins, or are they more on the like $40, $50 side?
Yeah, no, they're even more affordable than that. Actually, they're $15 for, we have a couple different run types. So kind of our commons is ones that are kind of widely available. They're at major retailers and that sort of thing. They're $15. And then we have more limited edition ones that are $20. But so they're very affordable price point.
Excellent. I think that's helpful for when we talk about welcome series, right? And how we're targeting what
Yes.
we're looking at from a price point standpoint. And the question I always ask is, how many people do you guys currently have on your email marketing team?
It is just me. So I do everything from strategic marketing, partnership marketing with our licensors, all the way down to email marketing and social media management. So it's just me.
Pretty typical, I think, for even larger companies, right? Pretty typical. You have one or two people on the team, but also super helpful to know. So when we're talking about how you're implementing these things, I'm going to hit you up with this question later so you can prepare, but the question is going to be like, how do you get this done, right? Because that's always the challenge. Time is just pressed. And then finally, which ecom platform are you guys currently using?
We use Shopify.
Excellent. So, Allison, appreciate the background.
Yeah, no problem.
We're here to talk about list growth and more so the welcome series strategy. But obviously, the more we grow our list, the more welcome emails we can send, and hopefully, the more conversions we get off of that as well. So, the saying I always say is the legs feed the wolf, right? So, we've got to feed that wolf. So, I want to dig into this a little bit. Let's start very basic with list growth. So, could you tell us a little bit about your strategy for list growth?
Before I came on, we actually weren't doing any sort of list growth management at all. We were just kind of relying on new customers coming through and purchasing something through Shopify, would then become a customer. Since I've got Omnisend about 6 months ago, I added a pop-up on our website. So after about, I believe it's 20% scroll down on the site, on any page throughout the website, a pop-up will appear asking someone, do you want to be added to our email list for exclusive offers, special releases, that sort of thing. And it just asks that customer to put in their name, email address, and then an optional phone number. And that's all I'm doing for list growth right now, as well as like a newsletter sign up along the bottom of the site.
I'm assuming you guys were doing newsletter sign up at in the footer of the site before the pop up was
We
implemented.
were,
Most
yes.
are. How successful have you found that pop up to be in terms of growing the list?
Extraordinarily successful compared to the newsletter sign up at the bottom. I think in the previous 6 months, we've had about 120 or so people sign up through the newsletter link at the bottom, but we've had, I think, over 2,000 sign up via the pop-up. So absolutely more exposure and more signups through that pop-up.
You mentioned an optional SMS number, right? Mobile number you're collecting on the
Yes.
form as well.
Mhm.
Full disclosure, I get your SMS messages, so uh, I could see what you're doing. So somewhat of a leading question, but what was the decision to ask for SMS and like to dabble into that channel? Because you talk to different people, obviously it's not like no one's using SMS. It's obviously a growing channel, but there's a lot of times a lot of hesitation with specifically using this channel because it does feel a little more intimate, more so than email. Can you walk us through that decision making process and then how it's going so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree that it's definitely a more intimate thing. I think people are a little bit more hesitant at this juncture to give up their phone number as opposed to email address. But to be honest, Omnisend, with the level that we signed up with, we got like a free, like free credits to try out the SMS with every month that we had. So I had all these built up because I didn't use it for the first few months. So I had all these SMS credits to kind of test it out. And I noticed that we had some people that had signed up for it. And so I thought, well, why not just try it and see if people like it? Honestly, I was hesitant to use it as well, but I thought, what the heck, it doesn't hurt. And in the way that our customers relate to our products, we have a lot of like special exclusive drops for really limited edition products. So that fear, that FOMO, that fear of missing out, is really, really high with our customer base. So the SMS has been extraordinarily successful because people want to see those drops and that info right away, so that they don't miss out on any sort of limited edition character or variant that they need to have for the collection. So I started this several months ago just to kind of test out with the free credits that I got through Omnisend, and the ROI on it has just been absolutely insane. So we will continue to do it absolutely for our customer base. It might not make sense in every industry, but for us, our customers are now, I see it in like our Facebook groups and stuff. We have, fan groups or whatever. They're like, how do we get these SMS messages? I need this so I don't miss any special drops. So I know that it's something that not only is it successful, but the customer base actually wants it because they want that info faster.
Do you have any, and it's fine if you don't, but even anecdotally
Yeah.
throwing out a number, but do you have any sense of what percentage of people might be opting into the SMS while they're opting into the email program at the same time?
Yeah. So I looked over this actually just the other day, and it looked like compared to, and it might be a little bit anecdotal, but however many email signups we've had compared to how many SMS signups we had, it's about 20% of the people put in both versus just their email.
So that's pretty good. It's a good
Yeah.
number,
Yeah.
I would say.
Absolutely.
So you get one out of every five.
Yeah. I think it's great to add the option and just have it be optional on a pop-up or some sort of sign up form, because then if people want that information faster and right to their phone in a text message, it's great to give them that option, but it also doesn't force them to have something that they maybe are interested in or seems too personal to them.
And I think that's a really key point there, Allison, is that right, we do like all things, right? We make it optional. So I always tell people, hey, if they don't want to get it, they don't have to get it, right? They're
Exactly.
not going to give you the number if they don't want it, but if they do, there's pretty good intent there, being like, hey, that's a communication channel I want. They can always opt out of it, but I think that's a really key point: is what do you have to lose, right? You're just
Exactly.
asking. I think when
Exactly.
you I think when you get into SMS as well, the other thing, like you went through this, you're like, well, I got these credits here. Let me figure out whether I should do something with it. Like if you
Hmm.
start asking for SMS and no one opts into it, I think it's a pretty good indication that your audience just isn't into it. But if you're getting one in five, it's a pretty good indication that it is.
Absolutely. I agree.
Your pop up, which is going to lead into the welcome series here,
Hmm.
do you offer an incentive for signing up, or is there a different value add associated with signing up for the email and SMS program?
Yeah, I believe on the pop-up it says like don't miss out on any exclusive offers, new releases, or giveaways. And as I mentioned earlier, our customer base is pretty big on the FOMO for particular character drops and exclusive limited edition offerings. So that's the biggest draw for us. And I think that's why we see so much success with it, is people don't want to miss out on those new releases.
Did you used to use an incentive at all, or was it always from day one the fear of missing out?
We haven't needed really to. So we've only been doing this for about 6 months. So my original thought was try something for 6 months, see how it does. And then if we need to adjust from there, we could. So no, we haven't tried anything else, at least up to this point.
Okay, so we've got a pop-up coming up. You said scroll down the screen about 20%. Pop-up comes up.
Yes.
We've got optional SMS. We have email. We're not using an incentive, and we're still seeing good results from there. And I think that's one of those other things where we have these conversations with people all the time, and the industry, we just discount everything all the time now. And I think
Yeah.
we've kind of set that expectation and backed themselves in the corner. For signups, you guys are doing exactly what a lot of people will tell you not to do is, you don't have to offer the incentive right away. You can always adjust if you need to, but you start off, I say free, but you start off with the value adds, right? The purpose of the brand,
Yeah.
and you work backwards from there. So I think you guys are doing it the right way.
I think for us, we would prefer, I think, like most brands, to not have to discount. We really believe in the value of our product. It's already at a very affordable price point. And I didn't want to offer a discount without first seeing if I could convert them without a discount. I think that's important for marketers to realize is that some customers will convert even without that discount. Try that first, see if it's successful, and then we can always adjust if we're not seeing the results that we want. But I wanted to give it a chance to work without the discount first.
All right, so we've got this list growth where this pop up, which is going to increase our list growth, which I mentioned. It's feeding the wolf, it's feeding the welcome series here. I do want to pivot over to the welcome series now and talk about the success you guys are having. We obviously did a customer success story recently with you. Looking at those metrics of the welcome series there, 63% open rate, 27% click through rate, 22% conversion rate, all really good numbers, right? I'll take
Yes.
anything
Yeah.
over 15% conversion rate. Like that's golden for me at that point.
Any day of the week. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great metrics here.
Yes.
So, first of all, tell me about the welcome series, right? How many messages do we have in that series? And kind of walk us through the genesis of that welcome series, if you could.
Yeah, no problem. So our welcome series is a three email welcome series. The first one they'll get immediately after sign up. It's just a welcome to the FiGPiN community. This is kind of what you can expect from these emails. And then a quick, just like link at the bottom. Okay, check out some of our recent releases that we've had. And the second email is a little bit more about like our story, how we started, where our FiGPiN name comes from, which is actually figurine and pin put together. In case anyone is listening and interested, to check out some of our best sellers. Just another kind of plug at the bottom, but really rich content, giving people kind of some more info about the brand and kind of getting them more invested in our story. And then the third one is just a little bit to the introduction of the FOMO that we really capitalize on. And it's, hey, check out some of our recent FiGPiN exclusives, which just mean we are the only ones that sell them. Don't miss out. These tend to sell out. Make sure to grab these before you won't have a chance to anymore before they sell out. We find that most people, if we're going to see conversions, convert in the first two, but we kind of see people buy all throughout the series, which is so great.
So, when you were coming up with the ideas for the type, what to put in the messages, right? The
Mm-hmm.
content that goes inside, how did you come up with those three different themes for the messages?
To be honest, our account manager through Omnisend really helped me kind of walk through what she sees as most successful. Really convinced me that I should start with the 3-part welcome series instead of just the one part. What seems easier when you're first setting up to I'll just do one and come back to it later. But she really convinced me that I need to put in the time for the welcome series specifically to start off with. So that was kind of how I got thrust into the 3-part series. And she kind of helped me come up with a strategy for what to include in the first, second, and third in terms of just higher level. In terms of the content and the writing specifically, I do all of our copywriting. So I just sat down and really signed up for a few other people, our competitors, saw what they put in there, what was working for them, and then just kind of sat down and decided I'd try something, get something going. If it doesn't work, if I need to tweak it later on, I always have that possibility. But I just wanted to kind of sit down and get something written and going. For the second one that dives into our background and story, I had read some articles. I believe it was through the Omnisend blog, to be honest, that talked about some ideas and what to include in that content for background story and kind of to get people invested in your brand.
Very good. So, your account manager, Heather, she'll be joining us next segment to talk. So, glad to hear that.
Yes.
I think the blog post, it was might have been something written by Whitney Blankenship here. So shout out Whitney if you're listening. Very good. I think one of the things you mentioned, which I love, is that, and this has been a common theme through pretty much every podcast when we talk about specific marketing strategies, but you sign up for what other people are doing, right? You borrow that
hmm
inspiration from other people. We've had people mention, oh, I've gone to Pinterest, right? Or just do a Google search looking for them for
Yep.
email messages. Pinterest is a great resource for email examples, by the way. When you talked about implementing the three and Heather was helping you and kind of guiding you along the lines, when you implemented your series, did you implement the first message first and add on to the others later, or did you save them all and fire them all off at the same time?
I'm fairly certain that I implemented all three at the same time. Heather was a big proponent of saying that she was really confident that the three part was going to be better converting and better for our customer base, and we'd see better results with it. So I think that I took the time to really like research and write down all three before we put anything live.
You don't offer an incentive for signing up. It does not sound like you offer like a surprise and delight incentive in the welcome series. Just confirming that, correct? There is no discount in that series.
That is correct, although we did test that at the beginning. I did test a discount in the third email instead of just, hey, check out our FiGPiN exclusives before they sell out. I did do an A/B test with that. And to be honest, and surprisingly, it surprised me, we did not see any better results on the discounted one. So I decided, well, I'm not going to offer a discount if it's not bringing us any better conversions. So I shut that off, and
Probably a smart move.
yeah, and I don't think I let it run for a super long time. I think about 6 weeks. But once I was seeing that it wasn't converting way better, I just shut that thing off because if I can get people to convert without that discount, that's a win-win.
We mentioned adding SMS during the pop up portion of it. Do you have either currently or plans to implement SMS into the welcome series as well?
I do have an SMS in the welcome series. Yeah, so the same time that the first email gets blasted off, it's also a text message SMS that also gets sent. That's just a quick welcome to the FigPin community. We're so glad you're here. Get excited for special promotions and exclusives sent right to your phone or something along that line.
And do you have any insights into how that message might convert over, say, the email version of the message on a conversion standpoint?
Conversion standpoint wasn't really my intention to convert on that SMS. It's more to get people comfortable with getting the SMS sent to their phone. And I don't even know that I linked to figpin.com in that SMS, which now that you say that, Greg, I should probably go back and add that in. And so that I can see how often it converts.
There you go. And this is the beauty of just people communicating via different channels, especially, I don't even want to say younger people because that's really a disservice. I mean, you look at baby boomers, they're texting every single day too, right? So it's not,
hmm
we got by that lazy like Gen Z narrative with SMS, but we look at just it's a part of everyone's everyday communication patterns nowadays, whether it's marketing messages, political messages, or friends and family texting you. It doesn't really matter, but the ability
hmm
to intermingle those channels into a single workflow or a single type of communication stream where you're really targeting people with the method they want to be targeted, I think is really important as well. So I'm glad you guys have that going on, at least in the welcome series too. If nothing else, like you said, let's get people used to just what our messages look like, and this is the number it's coming from, and this is who we are, right? And you kind of
Exactly.
set that baseline.
Yeah, and so that way people can also see confirming this is something that they want. They're not surprised when they get the first like text message about a new release or anything. They're expecting it, and they get a little more comfortable. They get a little bit more comfortable having that access to them.
Going to put you on the spot a little bit, so I apologize for this, Allison. But I also recognize you are doing tons of different things, and you're kind of the one woman wrecking crew over there. You mentioned the third message in the series doesn't convert quite as well. It's still converting, but it's not converting as quite as well as the first two.
Mhm.
So, kind of a two-pronged question here for you
Yeah.
is one, do you have any plans to ways to update that third message to test it to see if it does perform any better? And then the second part is, do you have any plans or working on any plans to kind of target these customers after they've gone through the entire welcome series and still haven't converted with either automated messaging or just any type of other strategy to see if maybe the first X amount of days wasn't working and now we need to get that back into the fold?
Yeah, that's a great question, Greg. I don't have any plans as of right now or ideas to help that third email convert quite as well. I think for as a one woman marketing person, it's kind of like if it's not broke, don't fix it, which I know is not how most marketers work. But I'm just so strapped on time. Like the Welcome series as a whole performs so well that it just doesn't. It's like it doesn't. Essentially, if it doesn't scream the loudest, it's not going to get the attention. Since it's performing so
Right.
well, I have kind of left the Welcome series alone. It's something that Heather and I will probably look at down the road a little bit once it gets to the point where we have something else, we don't have anything else that we really need to work on. In terms of once they finish the Welcome series and don't convert, we have several other automations that are super successful that I think people, if they don't convert in the Welcome series, are getting kind of targeted on those ones. And a lot of those are like product abandonment or browse abandonment, which I know we haven't really gotten into. I don't know if I'm sure you've talked about them in other podcasts, but essentially if someone comes to our site and looks at a particular product or a particular page, if they don't actually purchase anything, they get sent an email after the fact, say, hey, we noticed you were checking these FiGPiNs out. Make sure you come back before they sell out, or some sort of CTA to get them to come back then. I mean, we've seen a lot of success with that. So I've kind of leaned on those other automations to help convert people who didn't convert in the Welcome series.
So I had this conversation with a company called Carrots around cart and browse abandonment. So it's funny you say that. Well, like you, I said, well, people are going to go to your website and start signing up for your program now to get your welcome series, see what it looks like. I said, well, I apologize to you because people are going to be abandoning all your shopping carts now to get your messages, right? I said,
My conversions are
you've
going to
got
go
the
way
worst of
down.
the
Yeah.
straw, right? I'd rather send the welcome messages out. So that's really funny. The one thing I neglected, I probably should have asked you this 15 minutes ago, but with your welcome series, can you briefly walk us through the timing of their messages? So 3 messages, when are they sent from, time after sign up?
So I believe, Greg, you're putting me on the spot. I don't know that I know off the top
I
of my
know, I'm
head.
sorry.
It's okay if I pull it up really quick?
Sure, sure.
Okay. So it looks like we wait about 1 minute from the time of pop-up sign up to the actual first SMS and the first email being sent. And then we wait a day between that first email and the second email. And then we wait 4 days between the second email and the third email.
Okay. So that's one of those things there where we talk about the third one converting a little bit lower. So
Mm-hmm.
simple test there is just timing because you've got that
Yes.
gap there.
Yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but always good to know for people for thinking about when to send welcome messages. It's one of those age old questions that I used to get is like, well, what's the perfect timing? I'm like, I always give them the consultant's answer, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, you should probably test that, right?
Test it. Yep. Yeah. We should probably A/B test that. Yep.
Very good. I want to ask you because we talked about, you have a lot of different things on your plate. And I think pretty much anyone listening to the podcast is in the same boat. If they're in the email marketing, they probably are doing social or paid search, or they're doing merchandising, and they're doing vendor work, whatever it might be. There's more than one thing that they're concentrated on. How are you getting things done? You talked about you have not only the welcome, but you have the pop up, you have the browse abandonment, you have the cart abandonment. So you have these automated messages. How is one person doing all these things and being the main copywriter as well? How are you getting these things done and actually implement?
Yeah, so Heather and I spent a lot of time when we first set up this account. I just had to kind of tell myself and my superiors, like, hey, I really need to carve out some time to get these automations going and to get the account kind of set up and going. So I did have to invest some time at the beginning with Heather to really dive in and get these nailed down. And then now it's more maintenance, right? So it's more once a week or however often I can carve out some time to really sit down and tweak these or look at the data and see what else I can do to improve the stats and conversions on them. I also send new release emails every time. So those are different campaigns that I have to do manually. We see such amazing conversions with this that, I can prioritize it accordingly because I need to. We get so many sales and so much conversions from, it doesn't take me that long at this point. I've gotten really good. I created a template so that I can go in for campaigns and just copy the previous campaign, edit it with the new info and the new release and send it. It really doesn't take that long once you invested that time at the beginning to kind of create everything and kind of get everything set up.
Allison, we talked through timing, we talked through performance, we talked about what the messages look like as best we can in a verbal medium. We talked about successes. We talked about everything here. Is there anything I neglected to ask you about either the list growth strategies or the welcome series as a whole that you feel is important for the audience to know?
I think the biggest thing that I want the audience to take away from this is it doesn't take a lot of time and you can see major results with the automation specifically. I don't have a lot of time to dedicate to email marketing, but one of the reasons I came to Omnisend from Constant Contact was the automations and how easy it is to set up these automations and how well they can perform for anyone's business with a little bit of tweaking and just a little bit of time and get those things going. It's a no-brainer. You can make money while you sleep. You just have to find the time to set it up in the first place. Don't leave money on the table. Don't neglect to see the full potential of an email marketing campaign and system if you have a customer base that a lot of customers want to know this info. Our customers, they want to know about these new releases. They want to come. It's just a matter of getting the information to them at the right time and in a medium that is comfortable to them. So whether that's SMS, whether that's email, push app notifications. So, try out everything, test everything. It seems like it's a lot of work and a lot of time, but you will see the results on the other end.
Thanks for the plug, by the way. We did not ask you to plug us. So
I know. I know you didn't, but I've absolutely been very thrilled with Omnisend and our results through it. So I'm happy to plug anytime I can.
I'll take it. It's so Allison, you mentioned something there with revenue, and I led into the conversation with saying, you guys were driving about 24% of your email revenue off your automated series, right? Which is normally, I don't have the number in front of me, but I'm thinking it's around 2-3% of your total email sends. But you mentioned you have this audience that they want to hear your new releases. They want to see what's coming up and they want to see what's going on. A lot of that, they're deep collectors. Star Wars, you talk about fanaticism around Star Wars and anime and things like that. Has the success of your automated messages reduced your reliance on needing to send promotional campaigns during the week, or are you still doing the same thing you were doing before and the automated messages are now just gravy on top of that?
You know what? To be honest, it's mostly just gravy on top. We have new releases every single week of new products and new licenses. So I need to be able to continue to do that because that's where a lot of people depend on that communication to know about our new releases. Either that or social media are really the only two ways they can go about it. And not everyone wants to be on social media all the time. So I would say it's more gravy on top of what I'm already doing. But all the automation allows us to just see extra revenue come in and give me more time to figure out what else I can do to bring in even more sales. Something that's working in the background all the time.
Allison, if someone wants to reach out to you with any questions or to just contact you to connect professionally or even check out FiGPiN, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you, find the company? We'll have it in the show notes, but verbally is always a nice
So
call out as
on
well.
Instagram, we're FiGPiN Official. Twitter as well, FiGPiN Official. On Facebook, we're just FiGPiN. Me specifically, I'm Allison, 2 L's and an I, at figpin.com. So anyone's feel free to reach out to me with any sort of promotional things or questions or anything. I'm happy to help out.
Wonderful. So Allison Caufield, everyone, Senior Marketing Manager for FiGPiN. Allison, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate the insights you gave to the audience. I'm sure they're going to be extremely useful. I
Yeah, no
appreciate the
problem.
conversation. Have a great day. Any parting words of wisdom you want to leave for anyone?
Nope. Just maybe just dive in, just try it. You can always tweak it and tweak it, test it, A/B test it later on, but just dive in and get something out there so you can start seeing some conversions.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for your time,
Thanks so much,
Allison.
Greg. Appreciate
Have a great day.
Joining us to take it home in the back third of this episode of Cart Insiders is Heather from the Customer Success team. But she's not just any Customer Success Manager, she's actually Allison's Customer Success Manager at FiGPiN. You'll hear from Heather and Greg the inside scoop on how you can replicate some of the same strategies and results that FiGPiN has used to grow their revenue. If you're already an Omnisend customer, thank you so much. But if you're not and you want to check it out, head to omnisend.com where you can find the FiGPiN case study, the email scorecard that Heather talks about, and a few other resources mentioned throughout this episode. Now, back to Greg and Heather.
For our final segment today, I'd like to bring in Heather Wyand, Customer Success Manager here at Omnisend, and for Allison and FiGPiN. So Heather works with a variety of e-commerce clients and advises them on how to improve their email marketing programs and, more importantly, get things implemented, including providing advice on growing an email list and designing a strong welcome series, which we just spoke about. So at this point, I want to bring in Heather. Heather, welcome to the show. Thanks for making the time to be here.
Thanks, Greg.
So Heather, could we do a little level setting? Can you give the audience a little background about where you're located and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I'm Heather, and so I'm based out of Charleston, South Carolina. I am a customer success manager, and so what that means to me and our team and Omnisend customers is that I help onboard customers and make sure they're getting everything they need out of the tool to make sure that they're finding value at the end and understanding everything that I say and what they're experiencing.
This is something that people listening to this podcast, you've been hearing nonstop is how do we implement things? And this is a question I'm going to hit you up with
Yeah.
later, Heather, so you can start preparing now. But when you are working with customers and e-commerce brands, are you finding that a lot of them are also faced with the same limitation of resources?
Of course. Yeah. It's so widespread that I mean it's not something that I ever thought was true, because you see these big brands and you think, okay, that's a multi-million dollar company. There's no way they have less than 12 people like working on marketing. That is what the reality is. Many of the brands in my portfolio are one person, five people. I have one that pretty well known brand for it's a medical device. I'll just say that, and I think like five people in it, and you would never have guessed that for the quality of their emails that go out, the intelligent messaging that they're using, and the on brand. Like they're just very well put together, but there's really only about five people on the team, and they just sort of work with each other to get all of their marketing completed. FiGPiN is a really great example of one woman, Wonder Woman. She just does a great job at just taking everything, building what she can, and just iterating quickly and moving quickly. And that's what I tell a lot of my brands is that don't get so hung up on making everything absolutely perfect, because when you have short resources, you don't have time to sit there and think, oh, is this email absolutely beautiful to the way I love it? It doesn't need to be this long, extensive, never-ending scroll of an email, especially when you're short on time and resources. Get a couple good things in there, get out what you want to say, a big hero image, a big clear to call to action button, and move on, because you have other things you need to do. And you'll be amazed at the result of just a clean, simple email. There's that acronym, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. It applies here for sure.
Yeah, so I love what you say there because that ties in obviously bite-sized pieces, right? But this is the mindset of implementation and execution and
Yeah.
moving forward. I always say if you get 10% of 10 things done, you're nowhere. If you get 100% of one thing done, you're 10% complete, but you got one thing running in the background that is
Right.
hopefully increasing sales or giving you something, and it allows you to focus on other things. Now, that being said, I want to pivot back to list growth and welcome series, which is why I asked you to be on today, especially with FiGPiN and helping them achieve great things that the results they've achieved so far. List growth and welcome series, two different things, but they're pretty jointly connected with each other, right? We get a new email subscriber, and obviously that ties to a welcome series. When you work with customers on optimizing list growth and then a welcome series, is this one of those instances where you kind of couple these together? So, hey, we're going to work on both of these at the same time. Or do you still take the approach of, okay, let's do the list growth first and worry about the welcome series second? How do you personally approach these two topics?
Oh, yeah. I definitely think it's a more coupled experience. You have to address both of those at the same time. There are plenty of times where list growth is the first concern, and then it's a matter of, do you have a way for people to sign up? And sometimes when brands come, I don't always get brand new accounts in Omnisend. Sometimes I get brands that have organically grown, so they have an established rhythm, and they've just grown enough to the point where I get to communicate now with them, and I want to help them get even further. So what I find is sometimes there's not even a pop-up on their website, and that becomes a conversation where it's okay, if you really want to drive 10% list growth by third quarter, if the metric that you as a team have established, I'd love to help you get there. However, how are people signing up right now? So, we have to talk about getting some sort of pop-up or form going. And then once you have that form going, what are you saying to your customer? We don't want to just have them sign up and then nothing happens. We need to have that conversation, in that first email that just touches base. It confirms with the customer that they did in fact sign up correctly. Their email address was spelt right, that everything was good to go there. And then, if you're offering some sort of incentive in that pop-up, that you're giving to them that incentive as quick as possible, to drive that first time conversion. So, it's kind of like you have to do it all at once, because, you never want to sign someone up and then just give them nothing. Because I think it's like 7 out of 10 people go immediately to their inbox to see if they had something sent there, even if your pop-up didn't say that specifically. So it's about having that first touch point and continuing that conversation with your customer.
Yeah, and one of the things Allison mentioned, and I'm going to kind of shift back and forth here, so I apologize to listeners, but
Yeah.
one of the things
Mhm.
she mentioned was about having the three-part series and which messages and the types of content that were in those messages. And I said, well, do you have a discount in there? Because that's obviously a lot of times you'll go to websites and you'll get a discount for signing up. Is that enticement to sign up for your email program, which obviously converts a lot better. And she said, well, we tested that and it actually didn't work that well. So we took it out because why give away margins? And the conversions have not suffered from that. Do you often run into conversations with customers where they say, well, do I need to offer an incentive because I see everyone else doing it? What is kind of how do those conversations go from your standpoint? Do you see that most people are willing to offer incentives? Do you try to advise them to offer it if they're not, or vice versa? Can you walk us through kind of your mindset a little bit?
Right. So many of my customers, they initially feel like they need to offer incentive, but I don't necessarily recommend it just because why, like what you just said, like why cut into your revenue if you don't have to? FiGPiN is a very niche market where they have insane customers who are just so excited about product drops that they really don't need a percent off at all. They will just buy it up because they need to keep adding to their collection. So I think that was a very smart move on Allison's part to just, hold those coupons tight until there's a really good reason to give them away. The last thing I want to recommend is that you give out coupons for sign up, give out coupons for abandoned cart, give out coupons in any other part of that customer's journey, because then you become that coupon brand, where none of your
Hmm.
prices are real, that everything that a customer sees on your website is not the real price because you can find a coupon somewhere, right? I'm sure you can think of a couple like craft store brands that you just know that you'd be dumb not to come into that store with a coupon in hand, right?
It's
Because
Bed
it
Bath
just
and Beyond.
yeah. We don't want you to become that. So let's just save that coupon for when you're trying to revamp like a loyalty program, or when you're trying to win back some customers that haven't made a purchase in a really long time. That's when you really want to explore that route, just to kind of dangle the carrot in front of them.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I think that's really scary for brands to see everyone else doing something. You want to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
No one wants to discount. Brands have really backed themselves in the corners over the last 10 years with overly discounting and then matching. And it's certainly a consumer expectation. But to your point, if customers really want the product and they value the brand, they're going to make a purchase with you. And this is where the Welcome Series can help do that, right? It can help set expectations of the brand. It can help provide those value adds and the competitive differentiators. And this is where the value of that Welcome Series comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's really important to, like we were saying with signing up, like, you never want to just tell everything all at once, right? When you sign up for a brand, you get that first, like, it's called a high five, welcome to FiGPiN, or welcome to whatever brand you're signing up for. And then when you do that without an incentive, it just becomes like a nice greeting, right? I'm sure you can, if you've ever been into, I think it's like World Market, like an in-store experience. When you walk in there, whatever the cashier's doing by the door, they stop what they're doing and they yell to you at the door. They're like, welcome to World Market, and it just kind of gives you that, oh, cool, like somebody noticed me, right? That like happy feeling. I don't expect a coupon when I walk into a storefront, but getting a greeting is a really nice feeling. So having that first email do that for you is great. And then, that second email is a great opportunity to explain a little bit further about that brand and what makes it so special that you really should consider buying from them. The whole welcome series, in my point of view, is like an education series. Educate me on why your brand is special and what it is about it that I should pick you over someone who's cheaper and closer, and I can just get something there. And I think there's that whole philosophy around buying more quality over quantity. So if you have that little thing that makes you special, the Welcome Series is a great opportunity to just blow it out of the water, tell everybody all about it. So I think having that Welcome Series really reflect the story that you want told is the best thing you can do for your brand. Having that welcome series is, to hopefully drive conversion, right? But then also to give your customers that holistic view of who you are and what's worth buying from you.
You're absolutely right. Because people are passionate about their brands, right? They want to
Yeah,
tell the whole story.
they do. And it's so exciting, especially if you do have a small, scrappy team, and that's another thing I'd like to add. If you have a group picture, put that in there, put a face to the name. People want to know that you're human and that you are behind your brand. If you have a group picture of the packing warehouse, like that's really cool to see too. So use that to your advantage if you have that, and, or a picture of the inside of the facility that you work out of, or just a picture of the founder. It's always really great to see that, I'm not just buying a product, I'm buying an idea, a brand, from a family, from a group, from a team. So just having that emotional connection is really, really great to have.
Picture's worth 1,000 words. Before I get to kind of one of my wrap-up questions here, we kind of skipped over list growth a little bit. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about here because obviously list growth is important if you are email or SMS marketing. But I do want to tie back to one thing. Pop-ups have kind of lived this weird existence where they were new and it was cool, and then everyone started getting annoyed by it and said, I'm not going to any site with a pop-up, and now everyone has a pop-up, and they've become more mobile responsive and friendly, and now everyone likes pop-ups. At the end of the day, since day one, they've been the best list growth tool. I still see it. Do you see it with your clients as well as being the number one list growth driver?
Oh, of course, of course. I mean, there's always more low-key ways to attack that. If you feel like it's not quite within your brand voice to have something that pops up, so there's like the smaller low-key ones where it's just leaving the one at the footer of your website available at all times, or, a little widget that hangs out on the side just waiting to be clicked on. So there's definitely different strategies if you feel like a pop-up is too invasive to your customers. And then there's the ones that are like super gamified. We have the Wheel of Fortune, but you really have to consider your brand. And if that is going to be something that really goes with that brand, do you really, if you sell like high-end jewelry and your in-store experience is really high quality, would you ever consider having the Wheel of Fortune pop up there? I just don't think it really matches. And you have to consider that when you're marketing to your customers, how are you being viewed, right? There's some brands that are very, very clear in their pop-up messaging that what to expect out of signing up with them, and that can definitely be leveraged as well. And I don't always focus so much on list growth initially, but more so list retention, because there's that age-old saying, like, 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers, right? So how are you saying thank you to those customers and showing them that you appreciate their repeated buying from you? So list retention is huge, huge. You spend all this time gaining all these new signups. What are you going to do with them, and how are you going to retain them? So I think that, it's two pieces of the pie there, right? So it's not always just about grow, but keeping them and keeping your list healthy, being able to make sure that the people that are on there are continually active, that they are engaging, they're opening, they're clicking, they're buying. So it's a very like all feeds into each other thing.
Legs feed the wolf. You just said it in a different way. These things are holistic, and you need one thing to feed the next thing, which is going to make the wolf bigger and fatter, which is a great thing for the wolf. So you mentioned the nice thing about the pop-up, right? There's a pop-up. There's, if you want to gamify it, the Wheel of Fortune you mentioned there. You can slide in from the side, right? So people can kind of trigger themselves. There's also exit intent. So there's something for everyone, regardless of the type of brand you are, which is the great thing. We're pushing time here, Heather, so I want to get into kind of resource limitations. We talked about it early in the conversation here, but how about advice? So implementation is one of those challenging things. Yep, I created a message, I created 2, I created 3, whatever it might be. For companies who are tight on resources, and these are ones you work with all the time, what piece of advice might you offer them to help them execute or to paint a better path forward for those people?
Sure. So I'm queen of structure. It comes from the education background. I like lists. I like clean calendars. I like everything that can give me direction. And I think as soon as you find a tool that works for you, run with it and just commit yourself to it. So that way you can keep circling back to what you didn't accomplish and what's next. It's so easy to get overwhelmed, thinking about all the different pieces of the puzzle that you need to put together, but it doesn't need to be like that. Creating just a campaign calendar is a great piece of advice that we CSMs love to give to our customers, because having a structure that's easy, it's repeatable month after month, where you're just inserting a few new ideas, but the overall pattern is easy to follow. And just ticking off things one item at a time, and like to say, keeping the horse blinders on. It's easy to get distracted by all the things that you haven't done yet, but just checking things off one at a time and focusing on what's going to bring you the highest revenue for the least amount of effort, and then work your way down. We have a thing that a little tool that we use. It's called the email report card. And it's just essentially a checklist of things that you can build out in Omnisend to find success. And it's kind of organized in a way that makes most sense for setup, so that you're doing the big things first, but they're a little bit more difficult, but they're really going to drive revenue. And then you work your way through things that are just sort of follow-up items. So, once you have your list and it's grown, and once you've set up everything, like you have a pop-up, you have your welcome series nailed down, you have a couple emails that have went out weekly, and you're feeling really good, then it's a good time to start digging into loyalty concepts and birthday ideas. What I try to redirect customers is when they start to get really concerned about things like that. So like, I want to do something for birthdays. It's so easy to get concentrated on these tiny little moments and not look at the big picture. When somebody comes to your store, how are they going to experience that first week with you? You really, really ought to get that welcome series set up. That's going to be that first experience. Their birthday might not even be for 6 months. Why are we even talking about that? So let's focus on what is the first week that a customer is going to go through, and how are they going to see you, and then take that next step. Okay, so now you have customers, you have a couple people that gave you their birthdays. So let's talk about how are you going to say hello and happy birthday to them when that time comes, right? So just focus on one thing at a time and slowly work your way. And I think that is just, it's just really the type A, the organizational person that I am.
No, it's
really
good advice,
staying
because I think
focused.
when a lot of times we have, like, I do it myself, right? I've got a list and I use certain methods and things like this, but I also have 20 things in the back of my head going, I don't know how I'm gonna get any of it done. Some of it might be on my list, some of it might not be, some of it might be extra, but I think a lot of times, especially from an email marketing side, just putting things down, being able to look at it and say, okay, if I execute this thing, it's done, right? So it becomes more manageable when you can actually see it sometimes, especially in email, because you're getting advice from you're getting advice from podcasts, from newsletters, from websites and blogs, wherever it might be. And there's a lot, and it can be overwhelming, right? There's just a lot of things to do. So I love the advice here. Final question for you today, Heather. Personally, what is the best thing about working at Omnisend?
The people that I work with, I think that we all just have a lot of fun. Like there's always going to be stress and things going on at work, but I think what makes Omnisend so great is just the, I guess you could call it company culture, but it just seems like everyone is always just 110% in. Everyone seems to have drank the Kool-Aid, and we're all just having a great time all the time. So I think that definitely makes it easy to come to work every day and keeps me moving forward for sure. I love my team.
Very good and well said. Heather Wyand, everyone, Customer Success Manager here at Omnisend. Heather, thank you so much for your time, for your insights. I enjoyed the conversation today. It was really good. And to everyone listening, thank you for your time as well. If you have any questions, comments, or want to learn more about how to use email marketing to increase sales, not your workload, please feel free to email me at podcast@omnisend.com or visit us at omnisend.com. Until next time, have a great day and be kind to one another.